"Quiet, they're listening," said the homeless man to the rookie cop. Michael Thompson was walking down Maple Street on his first week as a police officer when he felt a trembling hand grab his arm. The 24-year-old was nervous about the responsibility of doing the night patrol alone in the town of Clearwater, in rural Pennsylvania. That's when the man with a grey beard and worn-out clothes pulled him into the shadows between two old buildings. The homeless man looked all around before whispering into the officer's ear with desperate urgency. "Quiet, they're listening," said Ernest with eyes wide with fear. Michael tried to pull away, thinking he was just another homeless person with mental problems, but something in the way the man spoke made him stop. "Listen here, son, I know you're new, but you need to know what's happening in this town." Ernest tightened his grip on the officer's arm. "Look, sir, if you have a complaint to make, you can go to the station tomorrow morning and—" "No," Ernest interrupted him. "Not there. They control everything there too. Mayor Wilson is stealing money from the elderly in the nursing homes." Michael stopped trying to break free. That accusation was too serious to ignore. "What do you mean? What story is this?" "I worked at the town hall for 15 years, son. I was an accountant there. I saw with my own eyes the papers, the fake invoices, the numbers that don't add up. Millions of dollars that should be going to food, medicine, and care for the elderly are going into his pocket and his friends." Ernest's voice trembled, but there was certainty in his words. Michael noticed that despite the worn clothes and the smell of alcohol, the man spoke with clarity and knowledge. "And why are you living on the streets if you worked at the town hall?" Ernest lowered his head bitterly. "Because when I found out everything and wanted to report it, they fired me. They made up that I was embezzling money. My wife couldn't handle the pressure and left me. I lost the house, my friends, everything. No one would give me a job anymore. They said I was a thief." The young officer felt a tightness in his chest. The story sounded too real. "But, sir, why are you telling me this? Why don't you go to the district attorney's office or—" "You think I didn't try?" Ernest laughed bitterly. "The district attorney is the mayor's buddy. The judge plays poker with him every Saturday. This town is small, son. Everyone knows each other and everyone protects each other." Michael looked around. The street was empty. Only a few lit windows cut through the darkness of the night. "What do you want from me, then?" "I want you to investigate. You're new. You haven't been bought by them yet. Go to St. Joseph's Home tomorrow and ask the nurses about the food that's arriving. Ask about the missing medicine. Then go to Blessed Heart Senior Home and ask the same questions." Ernest pulled a yellowed envelope from the pocket of his worn coat. "Take it. Here are copies of some documents I managed to save before I was fired. Compare the purchase orders with what's actually arriving at the nursing homes." Michael took the envelope hesitantly. His mother, Mrs. Dorothy, had been living at St. Joseph's Home for 3 years since she developed memory problems. He knew the food wasn't the best, but he thought that was normal for a public institution. "My mother lives at St. Joseph's," Michael said softly. "Then you'll understand when you see it with your own eyes." Ernest put his hand on the young officer's shoulder. "They're stealing from the mouths of our elderly, son. Your mother, my mother-in-law who's still alive there, all of them." Suddenly, a bright light illuminated the two of them. Michael turned and saw a police cruiser approaching. "Trouble here, Michael?" asked Sergeant Miller, a 50-year-old man who had worked for decades in the force. "No, Sergeant. Just talking with the citizen here." "Ernest, you causing trouble again?" Miller stepped out of the patrol car with a stern expression. "How many times have I told you not to bother your colleagues with these crazy stories? It's not a crazy story, Miller. You know very well that—" "Enough!" the sergeant interrupted him. "Michael, come here." The rookie officer approached the patrol car, still holding the envelope. "Listen up, kid. That's Ernest. He was fired from the mayor's office for theft 3 years ago. Since then, he's been making up stories to try to get revenge. Don't listen to him." "But, Sergeant, he said he has evidence." "Evidence?" Miller laughed. "He's already tried this story with half the town here. Fake papers, lies. The alcohol has really messed with his head." Michael looked back and saw Ernest still in the shadows, watching the conversation with a sad but determined look. "Let's get out of here, Michael. And you, Ernest, get lost before I take you to spend the night in jail." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. now continuing. When they arrived at the station, Michael couldn't get the conversation out of his head. He stored the envelope in his locker and decided that the next day he would visit his mother as he did every Sunday. But this time, he would pay more attention to the details. The next morning, Michael drove to St. Joseph's home. It was a two-story building painted light yellow, with well-kept gardens in front. From the outside, it seemed to be in good condition. "Good morning, Mr. Michael," greeted Nurse Jennifer, a 40-year-old woman who had been taking care of Mrs. Dorothy for a long time. "Your mother is in the back garden." "Thank you, Jennifer. Can I ask a strange question?" "Of course. How is the quality of the food here? My mother has been complaining lately." Jennifer looked around to check if anyone was listening and moved closer. "To tell you the truth, it's gotten much worse in the last 2 years. The meat that arrives seems to be second-rate, the vegetables come in a bit wilted, and the medicines, my goodness, several medications are always out of stock." "But you receive funds from the mayor's office for this, don't you?" "We do, but the director always says the money isn't enough, that everything has gotten more expensive. But I've worked here for 15 years and I've never seen things so bad." Michael felt a chill in his stomach. Ernest's words were starting to make sense. "And have you tried complaining to anyone?" "The director says she's already talked to the people at the mayor's office, but that there's nothing to be done, that the funding is just too little." After visiting his mother and noticing that she really was thinner, Michael decided to stop by Blessed Heart's senior home. The contrast was shocking. While St. Joseph's at least maintained its external appearance, Blessed Heart's was clearly neglected. Peeling paint, poorly kept garden, a strong smell of dampness. "Can I help you?" asked a young nurse who looked exhausted. "I'm a police officer. I'm making a routine visit. How are the conditions here?" The young woman looked around nervously. "Look, I can't say much, but things aren't easy. We do what we can with what we have." "What have you been receiving from the mayor's office?" "The director doesn't like us talking about these things. Sorry." On Monday, Michael opened Ernest's envelope at home. The documents were copies of invoices and purchase reports. One invoice showed the purchase of 1,000 kilos of top-quality meat per month for St. Joseph's. Another showed the purchase of expensive medications in large quantities. But what Michael saw at the homes didn't match those invoices. If they were receiving top-quality meat, where was it? If they were buying expensive medications, why were basic medicines missing? During his shift, Michael tried to look up information about Ernest in the police system. There really was a record of dismissal over suspected embezzlement, but there was no criminal case, just the administrative termination. "Researching someone, Michael?" asked Colonel Parker, the head of the station. "Oh, Colonel, it's just that yesterday I ran into Ernest, that former City Hall employee. He was making some strange accusations." The colonel's face changed immediately. "That drunk? Michael, a word in my office." The two entered the room and the colonel closed the door. "Listen well, son. I know you're new to the force, but you need to learn how things work around here. Ernest is a troubled man who can't accept being caught stealing. He's already caused a lot of trouble for this town with his lies." "But, Colonel, what if there's some truth to what he says?" "Michael." The colonel stepped closer and put his hand on the young officer's shoulder. "You have a promising career ahead of you. You don't want to ruin it all because of an alcoholic's fantasies, do you?" The way the colonel spoke made it clear it wasn't just advice, but a warning. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. His mother was wasting away in the nursing home, and he might have in his hands the proof that someone was stealing the money meant for her care. But he also couldn't ignore that his career was just beginning. On Tuesday, Michael decided to look for Ernest again. He found him under the Main Street overpass, arranging some cardboard that served as his bed. "I knew you'd come back," said Ernest without looking up. "How did you know?" "Because you have character. I saw it in your eyes yesterday. You went to visit the nursing homes, didn't you?" Michael nodded. "Things are bad indeed. My mother is thinner, the medicine is in short supply, and the documents I gave you? The receipts don't match what's being delivered. But how can I be sure this is a scheme and not just poor management?" Ernest stood up and looked directly into Michael's eyes. "Because I saw with my own eyes the receipts being altered. Because I saw Mayor Wilson signing contracts with shell companies. Because I saw him receiving envelopes of money from the suppliers. But that's just your word against his. No, I still have more evidence hidden. But I'll only show it if you promise me you'll take this all the way, no matter the cost. Michael felt the weight of the decision. On one side, his career and the pressure from his superiors. On the other, his mother and hundreds of seniors being harmed. What else do you have? Ernest smiled for the first time since they'd met. Photos, recordings, copies of contracts. It's all hidden in a safe place. Why didn't you show this before? Because I needed to be sure you were trustworthy. If I show everything and you hand me over to them, I'll end up in jail or worse. Michael understood the man's fear. In a small town, information traveled fast. Where is this evidence? First, you need to promise me one thing. What? That if something happens to me, you'll keep fighting. That you won't let these thieves get away with it. The seriousness in Ernest's voice frightened Michael. You think they might do something to you? They already have. They took everything from me. But I'm still alive, and that bothers them. At that moment, Michael made his decision. I promise. Ernest led him to a vacant lot on the outskirts of town. In an old tree, there was a hole covered by a rock. From inside, he pulled out a tightly sealed plastic bag. Everything is here, he said, handing the bag to Michael. Photos of the mayor taking money, recordings of conversations, contracts with companies that don't exist, spreadsheets showing the real amounts versus the declared amounts. Michael opened the bag and saw dozens of documents, photos, and even an old recorder. How did you get all this? I worked 15 years there, son. I had access to the files. I knew the schemes. When I realized what was happening, I started gathering evidence. I thought it would be easy to report and that everything would be resolved. How naive I was. The photos clearly showed Mayor Wilson receiving envelopes from men in suits. One of the recordings was of a phone conversation where he discussed percentages with someone. This is dynamite, said Michael. That's why they destroyed me when they found out I knew. They made up that I was stealing to discredit me. Michael stored everything in the bag. What do we do now? Now you need to find out who else is involved, because this isn't just the mayor. There's the health secretary, some council members, people within the police force itself. In the police? Why do you think Colonel Parker warned you not to mess with me? Why do you think no one ever investigated the reports I made? Michael felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. Who could he trust now? There's one more thing you need to know, said Ernest. The scheme is getting bolder. They're going to build a new nursing home with public money, but the land was already bought by a company owned by the mayor's son for a pittance. How do you know that? Because I still have friends at City Hall, honest people who are afraid to speak, but who pass along information. On Wednesday, Michael arrived at work determined to continue investigating, but found Colonel Parker waiting for him. Michael, I need to speak with you again. In the office, the colonel closed the door and sat behind the desk with a serious expression. I was told you were seen talking with Ernest again yesterday. Michael's heart raced. Who had seen? Who had told? Colonel, No need to explain. I know you're young and want to do the right thing, but sometimes the right thing isn't as simple as it seems. The colonel stood up and went to the window. You know your mother is at St. Joseph's, don't you? The mention of his mother sounded like a veiled threat. I know. It's an expensive nursing home. Even with help from City Hall, I know you pay a good amount every month. It would be a shame if she had to leave due to lack of space. Michael understood the message perfectly. Colonel, are you threatening me? No, son. I'm trying to protect you. You have a brilliant career ahead of you. Don't ruin everything because of the fantasies of a resentful drunk. When he left the office, Michael was trembling with anger and fear. They had touched on the most sensitive point, his mother. But that only confirmed that Ernest was right. If there was nothing to hide, why the threats? In the afternoon, Michael decided to visit his mother outside the usual hours. He wanted to make sure she was okay and also observe the conditions of the nursing home better. Mrs. Dorothy was in the common room, quieter than normal. Hi, Mom, how are you feeling? Oh, my son, I'm not doing too well. I'm feeling terribly weak. Are you eating properly? The food isn't very good, and the medicine the doctor prescribed last week still hasn't arrived. Michael discreetly spoke with other nurses and discovered the situation was worsening every week. Basic medications were constantly in short supply. The food had decreased in both quantity and quality. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. On Thursday, Michael received an unexpected call. "Hello, Michael. This is Melissa Wilson." Michael knew Melissa by sight. She was a teacher at the municipal school and Mayor Wilson's daughter. "Hi, Melissa. How can I help you?" "I need to talk to you. It's about my father and what's been happening in town. Can we meet?" Michael was surprised. Why did the mayor's daughter want to speak with him? "Where?" "At the little church square, at 7 tonight. And Michael, come alone." That evening, Michael found Melissa sitting on a park bench. She was a woman of about 30, with brown hair tied in a ponytail and a worried expression. "Thank you for coming," she said as Michael approached. "Melissa, what's going on?" "I know about Ernest. I know he reached out to you." Michael became alert. "How do you know?" "Because I know he's right about my father." This revelation completely took Michael by surprise. "What do you mean?" Melissa took a deep breath before continuing. "My father doesn't know that I know, but I discovered the schemes a few months ago. I saw documents at home, overheard phone conversations. He really is embezzling money from the senior homes." "And why are you telling me this?" "Because I can't live with this guilt anymore. I see the town's elderly suffering and I know my father is responsible, but I don't have the courage to report my own family." Melissa began to cry. "My mother knows nothing. She'll be devastated if she finds out, and I don't know what to do." Michael sat beside her on the bench. "Melissa, do you have proof of what you're saying?" "I have some documents I saw at home, but not as much as Ernest must have." "Do you know Ernest?" "I knew him when he worked at the mayor's office. He was an honest, hard-working man. When my father fired him, he said he was stealing, but I always had doubts." "Why?" "Because I know my father. I know how capable he is of lying when he's afraid of being exposed." Melissa wiped her tears. "I work at the municipal school. I see children who are grandchildren of the elderly from the senior homes. They tell me how their grandparents are thin, sick, complaining about the bad food, and I know it's my family's fault. What do you want me to do?" "I want to help Ernest prove the truth, but I need you to protect me. If my father finds out I'm helping, would he do something against you?" "I don't know. I've never seen him as nervous as he's been these past few weeks. I think he suspects someone is investigating." Michael thought about Colonel Parker's words about his career and his mother. "Melissa, this is dangerous for all of us." "I know, but I can't pretend I don't know anymore. I need to do the right thing." On Friday, Michael, Melissa, and Ernest met discreetly at the same vacant lot where the evidence was hidden. "I can't believe you're here, Melissa," said Ernest with emotion. "I always knew you were different from your father." "Ernest, forgive me for not believing you before. Forgive me for staying silent so long." "No need to apologize, my dear. I know how hard it is to go against family." Melissa gave Ernest some documents she had managed to photograph at home. "These are contracts my father recently signed. I don't understand much, but I think they might be useful." Ernest examined the papers and his eyes widened. "This is gold, Melissa. These contracts are with shell companies. Look here, this company doesn't even really exist. It's just a tax ID to launder money." Michael studied the documents along with them. "With all this we have, can we already make a formal complaint?" "We can," said Ernest, "but we need to think carefully about where to take it. If we go to the local authorities, they'll cover it up." "What if we go to the state capitol?" suggested Melissa. "That's an option. But first we need to put everything together in a well-organized dossier." Over the weekend, the three dedicated themselves to organizing all the evidence. Michael used his police knowledge to catalogue everything professionally. Melissa helped decipher the more technical documents, using her knowledge as a teacher. Ernest provided the historical context for each document. On Monday, when Michael arrived at work, he found an unpleasant surprise. Colonel Parker had a very serious expression. "Michael, have a seat." "Did something happen, Colonel?" "Yes, something did." I've received information that you've been getting involved with suspicious elements in town. Colonel, Don't finish. I also heard you've been investigating matters that aren't under your jurisdiction. The colonel stood up and began pacing the room. Michael, I'll be direct. You're being transferred to another city. What do you mean? Your transfer has already been approved. You have 1 week to report to the police station in Lancaster. Michael felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. But Colonel, my mother is here. She needs me. You should have thought of that before sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. Is this punishment? This is an opportunity for you to start fresh somewhere else without getting into trouble. When he left the office, Michael was desperate. If he were transferred, he could no longer protect his mother or help Ernest and Melissa. That afternoon, he sought out the two of them and told them about the transfer. They're trying to get you out of the way, said Ernest. This proves we're on the right track. But what now? If I leave, you'll be alone in this. Michael, said Melissa, you can't give up your career. Ernest and I will continue the investigation. No, I promised Ernest I'd see this through to the end. I won't abandon you now. Ernest put his hand on the young policeman's shoulder. Son, you've already done more than you should. I won't let you ruin your life because of my war. It's not your war, Ernest, it's our war. It's the war of all the seniors who are being robbed. That night, Michael made the most difficult decision of his life. He called Colonel Parker. Colonel, I won't accept the transfer. What do you mean you won't accept? It's not a choice, Michael. Then I'll resign. Are you crazy? Maybe, but I'd rather be crazy than be an accomplice to stealing from the elderly. The next day, Michael submitted his resignation. The colonel tried to dissuade him, even offered him a promotion, but Michael had already made his decision. With more free time, Michael could dedicate himself fully to the investigation. Together with Melissa and Ernest, they discovered that the scheme was even bigger than they had imagined. The health secretary, Dr. Richard Taylor, was also involved. He was the one signing the purchase authorizations for the overpriced medications. In return, he received monthly commissions from the mayor. 3 council members also participated in the scheme, approving bills that benefited the shell companies. But the most shocking discovery came when Melissa gained access to her father's computer one night. Michael, Ernest, you need to see this, she said the next morning, looking like she hadn't slept. What did you find? My father has a spreadsheet on his computer with all the payments made over the last 3 years. He embezzled more than $2 million from the nursing homes. $2 million? Ernest almost shouted. $2 million that should have gone to food, medicine, caregivers, renovations. Now I understand why the conditions are so horrible. Michael felt a deep anger. His mother and hundreds of other seniors were suffering, while those men grew rich at their expense. Enough. We're taking all this to Philadelphia, straight to the state attorney general's office. On Wednesday, the 3 traveled to the state capitol. They brought all the evidence organized in a thick folder. The district attorney who received them, Dr. Frank Marshall, listened carefully to the whole story. These are very serious accusations, he said, after examining the documents. If proven, we're talking about administrative misconduct, forming a criminal organization, damage to public property. Doctor, all the evidence is there, said Ernest. Photos, recordings, documents, spreadsheets. I'll analyze everything carefully. If the evidence is sufficient, we'll open an official investigation. When they returned to Clearwater, the news that they had gone to the capital had already spread. Michael noticed they were being followed ever since they got off the bus. I think they know we went to Philadelphia, he said to Melissa. My father was acting strange last night. He made several phone calls in a low voice. Ernest, who had gone back to sleeping under the overpass, showed up at Michael's house the next morning looking worried. They came after me last night. Who? 2 men in suits. They said I should stop spreading lies or I'd regret it. Did they threaten you directly? They didn't say anything direct, but the message was clear. Melissa arrived shortly after, visibly shaken. My father found out I helped you. How? He saw in the computer history that someone accessed his files. He confronted my mother, who swore she didn't know anything. Then he came to talk to me. What did he say? That if I continued with this betrayal of the family, he would disinherit me and even make me lose my job at the school. And your mother? Did she find out everything? My father told her everything last night. My mother was in shock. She really didn't know anything. Melissa began to cry. My family is destroyed. My mother spent the whole night crying. My father is in a rage I've never seen before, and all because of me. It's not because of you, Melissa, said Michael. It's your father's fault for having stolen in the first place. But I'm the one who turned in my own family. Ernest approached and put his hand on the young teacher's shoulder. Young lady, you did the right thing. Sometimes doing the right thing hurts a lot, but it's still the right thing. And now? If the district attorney really opens an investigation, will my father be arrested? Probably, replied Michael. With the evidence we have, he can't deny it. On Thursday, Michael received a call from the nursing home. Mr. Michael, this is Jennifer from St. Joseph's. Your mother isn't doing well. Michael's heart raced. What happened? She fainted this morning. She's in the hospital now. Michael rushed to the hospital and found his mother admitted, very weak. Doctor, what's wrong with her? Malnutrition and anemia mostly. It seems she hasn't been eating properly for some time. Michael looked at his mother, so fragile in the hospital bed, and felt a fury growing inside him. Those men had touched his family in the most cowardly way possible. Mum, you're going to be okay, I promise. Mrs. Dorothy opened her eyes and smiled weakly at her son. My boy, are you all right? I heard you left the police. I'm fine, Mum, and I did that so I could take better care of you. You didn't have to do that because of me. Mom, I did it because it's the right thing. There are people stealing the money that should be taking care of you and the other seniors, but that's going to end. On Friday, District Attorney Frank Marshall called Michael. Michael, the evidence is solid. We're going to launch an operation to investigate and arrest those involved. When? Next week, but I need to warn you, from now on you are official witnesses. That means you could be in danger. What kind of danger? Attempts at intimidation, threats, even physical attacks. I recommend you stay in safe places and avoid going out alone. When Michael told Ernest and Melissa, the three became tense. I think we should hide until the operation happens, suggested Melissa. Where? Asked Ernest. I don't have a house. I don't have a family. You can stay at my house, offered Michael. And I'm going to stay at a friend's house in another city, said Melissa. On Saturday, Ernest was at Michael's house when there was a knock at the door in the middle of the night. Who is it? Police. Open the door. Michael recognized Sergeant Miller's voice. But what authority did he have to knock on his door in the middle of the night? What do you want? We have a search warrant. There are allegations that you are hiding stolen documents from the mayor's office. Michael knew it was a lie, but couldn't deny them entry. When he opened the door, Miller and two other officers entered. Where's Ernest? I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to us, Michael. We know he's here. Ernest appeared in the living room. I'm here, Miller. What do you want? You're under arrest for slander and defamation against public officials. On what grounds? On the basis of the lies you've been spreading around town. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Michael tried to intervene. Wait a minute. You can't arrest him without evidence. The evidence is the very rumors he's spreading, replied Miller. That's not a crime. Yes, it is when it harms the reputation of honest people. They took Ernest away in handcuffs. Michael was desperate. He immediately called District Attorney Marshall. Doctor, they arrested Ernest. On what justification? Slander and defamation. But it's obviously to intimidate. I'll file a habeas corpus tomorrow, but this shows they're desperate. At the police station, Ernest was placed in a solitary cell. Colonel Parker went to visit him personally. Ernest, you still have time to take it back. Take what back? Admit you made it all up. Say you were drunk, that you wanted to get back at the mayor. In exchange, you get out of here and even get some help to start a new life. How old do you think I am, Parker? I don't understand. I've already lost everything in my life. My family, my job, my dignity. The only thing I have left is the truth. I won't sell that for any price. You really are stubborn. I'm not stubborn, I'm honest. something you've forgotten how to be." The colonel left the cell without responding. On Sunday, Melissa returned to town upon hearing of Ernest's arrest. Her mother, Mrs. Helen, also found out about the district attorney's office investigation and sought out her daughter. "Melissa, we need to talk." The two met at Michael's house, away from the mayor's ears. "Mom, I'm so sorry for all of this." "No, honey. I'm the one who's sorry for having lived all these years beside a man like that without realizing it." Mrs. Helen's eyes were red from crying. "I truly didn't know anything, Melissa. Your father always told me the business was doing well, that he was working to improve the town. I never imagined he was stealing from the elderly. Mom, I know you didn't know. But I should have been suspicious. I should have paid more attention. That new house, the trips, the expensive gifts. Where did the money for all that come from?" Michael served coffee to the two women. "Mrs. Helen, you can't blame yourself for trusting your husband." "Yes, I can, Michael. Because while I was enjoying the stolen money, elderly people like your mother were in need." "Mrs." Helen took a deep breath before continuing. "That's why I've decided I'm going to help you." "What do you mean, Mom?" "I know where your father hides other documents. I know about meetings he holds at home with the others involved. I can help the investigation." "Mom, if Dad finds out—" "He already found out that you told me everything. Now it doesn't make a difference. I'd rather be on the right side of history." On Monday, Ernest's habeas corpus was granted and he was released. When he left the police station, he found Michael, Melissa, and Mrs. Helen waiting for him. "How was it in there?" asked Michael. "They tried to buy me off, intimidate me, but they couldn't." "What else did they say?" "The colonel made it clear that if I don't stop with the lies, bad things could happen." Mrs. Helen approached Ernest. "Mr. Ernest, my name is Helen Wilson. I'm the mayor's wife." Ernest grew tense, not knowing how to react. "I came here to apologize on behalf of my family and to offer my help." "Mrs. Helen, you don't need to—" "Yes, I do. My husband destroyed your life and the lives of many other people. I can't undo the harm he did, but I can help bring about justice." That afternoon, Mrs. Helen revealed important information. The mayor had a meeting scheduled for Wednesday with everyone involved in the scheme. They were going to decide how to handle the district attorney's investigation. "Where will the meeting be?" asked Michael. "At our house, in the back office." "What if we put a recorder there?" "It's possible. I know every corner of the house." "Mrs. Helen, this is dangerous for you." "Michael, I lived 25 years married to that man. I thought he was honest, hard-working, concerned about the city. Discovering that it was all a lie is destroying me inside." Melissa held her mother's hand. "Mom, are you sure?" "I am. I can't live knowing that my husband stole money from sick elderly people and not do anything to help." On Tuesday, they worked out a plan. Mrs. Helen would place a small recorder under the office desk before the meeting. Michael would be hidden in the backyard to make sure she stayed safe. Ernest would stay home, since it would be too dangerous for him to show up nearby. "If anything goes wrong, you run and leave me," said Mrs. Helen. "No way," replied Melissa. "We're in this together until the end." On Wednesday evening, the plan was carried out. Mrs. Helen managed to place the recorder without being noticed. Melissa and Michael hid in the garden from where they could hear the voices coming from the office. At 8 o'clock, the meeting participants began to arrive. The health secretary, Dr. Richard Taylor, was the first. Then came the 3 councilmen involved in the scheme: Paul Davis, Charles Rivers, and Joseph Greenfield. Last to arrive was Colonel Parker. Michael was shocked to see the colonel entering the house. He suspected the police were involved, but seeing it with his own eyes was a blow. The meeting began with Mayor Wilson explaining the situation. "Folks, we're in a delicate situation. The State Attorney General's office is investigating our operations." "How did they find out?" asked Dr. Richard. "That damn Ernest managed to convince some fools to help him. My own daughter is involved in this." "And now?" asked Councilman Paul Davis. "Now we need to protect ourselves. Colonel, did you manage to take care of the Ernest problem?" "I tried, but the habeas corpus was granted. He's already out." "Damn it. And the evidence he has?" "From what I found out, there's a lot. Photos, documents, recordings, enough to screw us." Melissa squeezed Michael's hand. It was hard to hear her own father talking like that. "There's one more thing," continued the mayor. My wife found out everything and is on their side. Your wife? Dr. Richard seemed surprised. Helen confronted me yesterday. She said she won't go along with this anymore, that she wants a divorce and will cooperate with the investigation. That's a problem, said Colonel Parker. Yeah, that's why I need your help. We need to find a way to discredit the witnesses. How? Asked Councilman Charles Rivers. Ernest is easy. It's just a matter of saying he's an alcoholic, that he's lying to get revenge. The police officer Michael has no credibility anymore because he was fired. My daughter is just an idealistic teacher without any knowledge. And your wife? My wife is emotionally shaken by the discovery. We can claim she's not psychologically fit to be a witness. Michael felt disgusted hearing how they plan to destroy the lives of innocent people. But what if that doesn't work? Asked Joseph Greenfield. Then we use more persuasive methods. What kind of methods? Dr. Richard seemed nervous. Accidents happen, said Colonel Parker. Elderly people are fragile. They can fall down the stairs, have heart problems. Michael understood they were talking about his mother. They were planning to do something against her. The meeting continued for another hour, with them discussing ways to hide evidence and intimidate witnesses. When it finally ended, Michael and Melissa waited for everyone to leave before entering the house. Mrs. Helen was pale, sitting in the living room. "Were you able to record everything?" she asked. "We were," replied Melissa. "Mom, are you okay?" "No, I'm not. Hearing my husband planning to hurt people, I don't recognize the man I married anymore." Michael checked the recorder. The quality was good, all voices were clear. "With this, they can't deny it anymore," he said. "What do we do now?" asked Melissa. "Now we protect you and hand everything over to the district attorney." On Thursday morning, Michael called District Attorney Marshall. "Doctor, we have a recording that changes everything." "What kind of recording?" "A meeting between everyone involved in the scheme planning how to protect themselves from the investigation. And there's more. They're planning to intimidate witnesses, including threatening my mother's physical safety." "This is very serious. Are you in a safe location?" "We're all at my house. Stay there. I'll send a team from Philadelphia to protect you and collect the evidence." "When will the operation be?" "Today. We can't wait any longer, not with them planning actions against witnesses." In the afternoon, a team from the State Attorney General's office arrived in Clearwater. They were prosecutors and investigators from Philadelphia, with no connection to local authorities. District Attorney Marshall came personally to coordinate the operation. "You've done exemplary work," he told Michael, Melissa, Ernest, and Mrs. Helen. "We rarely see such a complete dossier against municipal corruption." "What will happen now?" asked Ernest. "Now we'll arrest everyone involved and file criminal charges. They'll answer for racketeering, embezzlement, administrative misconduct, and witness intimidation." On Friday morning, the operation began. Arrest warrants were executed simultaneously against Mayor Wilson, Health Secretary Dr. Richard, the 3 councilmen, and Colonel Parker. The town of Clearwater woke up to the explosive news. No one had imagined the extent of the scheme. The mayor was arrested at home in front of his wife. Mrs. Helen was prepared, but it was still painful to see the man she had lived with for so many years being taken away in handcuffs. "Helen, you'll regret this," were the mayor's last words before getting into the police car. "No, Wilson, I regret having waited so long to act," she replied. Dr. Richard tried to flee when he saw the police arriving, but was captured at the airport trying to board a flight to New York. The councilmen were arrested in their homes. Joseph Greenfield even tried to bribe the officers, offering money and promises. But the arrest that drew the most attention was Colonel Parker's. Other officers from his own department were shocked to discover their chief was involved in corruption. Michael, who was following the operation as a witness, felt a bitter satisfaction seeing the man who tried to destroy his career being arrested. "How do you feel?" asked District Attorney Marshall. "Relieved, but also sad that it came to this. With the main suspects arrested, the investigation expanded to other possible participants. They discovered that some town hall employees also knew about the scheme, but were intimidated into staying silent. A purchasing department employee, Martha Sullivan, approached investigators to tell her version. "I knew something was wrong for a long time," she said. "The invoices didn't match up. The suppliers were always the same, but I was afraid to speak up." "Why were you afraid?" "Because I saw what they did to Ernest when he tried to report it. I didn't want to lose my job and become an enemy of the mayor." "And now, are you willing to testify?" "I am. I can't pretend I don't know anything anymore." As days passed, more employees found the courage to speak up. The scheme was even bigger than they had initially imagined. Ernest was temporarily taken in at Michael's house, while investigators asked more questions. Little by little, he regained his dignity and hope. "You know, son," he said one morning over coffee, "for 3 years I thought I was going crazy. Everyone said I was a liar, that I was making things up. There came a point where I almost believed it. But you never gave up. Because I knew it was true. And because I knew that if I gave up, they would keep stealing from the elderly forever." Melissa took leave from school to follow the entire investigation. Her relationship with her mother grew stronger during that difficult time. "Thank you, daughter, for having the courage to do what I couldn't," said Mrs. Helen. "Mom, you did your part when you decided to help us. But I took too long. While I was pretending not to see anything, elderly people were suffering. What matters is that now everything will change." The situation at the senior homes began to improve quickly. With the scheme uncovered, funds were properly allocated. The food improved, medications started arriving in adequate quantities again, and more caregivers were hired. Mrs. Dorothy, Michael's mother, fully recovered and returned to the senior home in much better condition. "My son, you saved many lives," she said during a visit. "It wasn't just me, Mum. It was several brave people working together. Even so, I'm proud of you." 2 weeks after the arrests, it was time for the formal interrogations. Everyone involved was taken to Philadelphia to testify. Mayor Wilson initially tried to deny everything, but when confronted with the recordings and documents, he ended up confessing to some of the crimes. "I admit there were irregularities," he told the district attorney, "but it wasn't as serious as they're making it out to be. Mr. Wilson, we have evidence that you diverted over $2 million intended for elderly care." "What do you call that?" "They were temporary loans. I always intended to pay the money back." "Loans? Where did that money go?" "Investments to generate more resources for the city. Investments like the vacation home you bought in your name, the imported car, the trips abroad." Confronted with the facts, the mayor couldn't maintain his story. Dr. Richard tried a different strategy. He claimed he was being coerced by the mayor. "He threatened me," he told the district attorney. "He said if I didn't participate in the scheme, I would lose my position." "And why didn't you report the threats at the time?" "Because I was afraid. Wilson has a lot of power in this city. But the evidence shows you were receiving monthly commissions. That doesn't sound like coercion." Dr. Richard didn't know how to respond. Colonel Parker was the most resistant. He denied any involvement until he was confronted with the recording of the meeting. "This recording was obtained illegally," he claimed. "It was obtained by citizens who were being threatened by you and your accomplices. It's legitimate evidence. I never threatened anyone. We have a recording of you talking about accidents that could happen to the elderly. How do you explain that?" The colonel fell silent. The 3 councilmen tried to downplay their involvement, claiming they only voted on projects without knowing the details. "You approved laws that specifically benefited the shell companies involved in the scheme," said the district attorney, "and you received payments for it." "We didn't know they were shell companies," claimed Paul Davis. "So how do you explain that you voted in favor in exchange for money?" "They were legal donations for future campaigns. Donations from companies that don't exist." The council members couldn't uphold their versions either. Meanwhile, in Clearwater, life was beginning to return to normal. An interim mayor took office and implemented measures to ensure transparency in management. Ernest was invited to work as a consultant at City Hall, helping to reorganize the financial sector and implement anti-corruption controls. "I never imagined I'd one day work at City Hall again," he said to Michael, "and now you're going to help build an honest administration. It's a chance to repair some of the harm that was done." Melissa created a project at the school to teach children about public transparency and fighting corruption. I want the next generations to grow up knowing it's their right to hold government officials accountable, she explained to the other teachers. Do you think this will make a difference? Of course it will. If more people had been watching, my father's scheme would never have lasted so long. Mrs. Helen decided to get divorced and dedicate her life to social work. She created a foundation to help families of honest public employees who suffered retaliation. I want to use the rest of my life to repair some of the harm my family caused, she said. Mrs. Helen, you're not to blame for what your ex-husband did, said Michael. Maybe not directly, but I stayed silent for too long. Michael decided to take the exam for the Pennsylvania State Bureau of Investigation. He wanted to continue being a police officer, but in an environment where he could work with integrity. Are you sure? Asked Ernest. After everything you've been through? I am. The problem isn't the police, it's the corrupt officers. I want to be part of the solution. Then I fully support your decision. 2 months after the arrests, the time came for the trial. The case had repercussions throughout the state and was considered an example of fighting municipal corruption. Mayor Wilson was sentenced to 8 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution equivalent to double the embezzled amount. He also lost his political rights for 15 years. Dr. Richard received 6 years in prison and also had to pay restitution. Colonel Parker was sentenced to 5 years in prison and expelled from the force. The 3 council members received sentences between 3 and 4 years in prison, lost their positions, and had their political rights suspended. On the day of the sentencing, Ernest was present in the courtroom. When the judge read the convictions, he cried with emotion. Finally, he said to Michael, 3 years fighting for someone to believe me. We finally achieved justice. No, Ernest, you achieved justice. We only helped. We did it together, son. Alone, I wouldn't have accomplished anything. Melissa was also present and was emotional seeing her father sentenced. It's painful to see my father like this, she said to her mother, but I know it was the right decision. He had many chances to stop, replied Mrs. Helen. He chose to keep stealing. After the trial, the embezzled funds were recovered and invested in improvements for the senior homes. St. Joseph's was renovated, received new equipment, and hired more staff. Blessed Hearts also underwent structural renovations. A 3rd senior home was built to meet the growing demand of elderly in the city, this time with complete spending transparency. Ernest was appointed overseer of the funds allocated to the senior homes, ensuring there would never be embezzlement again. It's ironic, he said to Michael. I was accused of stealing, and now I'm responsible for preventing theft. The truth always wins in the end, replied Michael. It takes time, but it wins. Michael passed the State Bureau of Investigation exam and began working in Philadelphia. But he continued visiting Clearwater regularly to see his mother and friends. Melissa became the director of the municipal school and implemented several citizenship education projects. Mrs. Helen moved to a smaller house and dedicated herself entirely to social work. Her foundation had already helped dozens of families. 1 year after the whole story began, Ernest organized a gathering in the central square of Clearwater. He wanted to publicly thank everyone who had helped him. "A year ago, I was just a drunk on the streets talking to myself," he told the small crowd gathered. "No one believed me. No one listened to me." The audience listened attentively, but 3 people had the courage to hear me out. Michael, who risked his career to do what was right. Melissa, who chose justice over family, and Mrs. Helen, who preferred truth over comfort. And now, Ernest continued, our town has dignified nursing homes, a transparent city hall, and honest employees. We proved it's possible to fight corruption and win. Michael approached the microphone. "Ernest, you are the one who deserves our thanks. You lost everything because you refused to stay silent in the face of injustice. You are a hero." The audience applauded emotionally. Melissa also spoke. "I learned that sometimes doing the right thing means going against our own family. It's painful, but necessary. My father chose the path of dishonesty. I chose the path of truth." Mrs. Helen became emotional as she spoke. "I lived many years in a lie. I enjoyed stolen money without knowing it. When I discovered the truth, I had to choose between my comfort and my conscience. I chose my conscience. At the end of the event, the four gathered privately. "You changed my life," said Ernest. "You gave me back my dignity, my hope, my will to live." "You changed ours too," replied Michael. "You taught us that we should never give up on the truth." "And that one person can make a difference," added Melissa. "That several people together can change an entire town," concluded Mrs. Helen. 2 years later, Clearwater became a benchmark for public transparency. Other municipalities came to learn from its experience in fighting corruption. Ernest married again, to a nurse from St. Joseph's Home. He had finally found the happiness he thought was lost forever. Michael specialized in crimes against public administration and became one of the state's most respected investigators. Melissa was elected councilwoman with the highest number of votes in the town's history, promising to continue the work for transparency. Mrs. Helen became a recognized activist throughout the state, speaking at events about the importance of citizen participation. The nursing homes in Clearwater became a model for other towns. Mrs. Dorothy, Michael's mother, lived her final years with dignity and comfort, surrounded by proper care. When she passed away peacefully at 89, Michael knew she had had the old age she deserved, thanks to the fight they had waged against corruption. At Mrs. Dorothy's funeral, Ernest approached Michael. "Your mother was one of the reasons I never gave up," he said. "Every time I felt tempted to stop, I remembered the elderly like her suffering." "She always said you were a good man," replied Michael, "that one day the truth would come out. Your mother was a wise woman." 5 years after the story began, Ernest wrote a book telling the whole experience. The title was Silence They Are Listening: How a Town Defeated Corruption. The book became a success and was used in universities as an example of citizenship and fighting corruption. At the book launch, Ernest gave an emotional speech. "This book isn't about me. It's about the power of truth. It's about what ordinary people can do when they come together for a just cause. For 3 years I lived on the streets, despised by everyone. But I never lost faith that one day someone would listen to me. And when that happened, we discovered we could change our entire city. The message I want to leave is simple: never stop fighting for what's right. Even when everyone is against you, even when it seems impossible, keep fighting. Because truth is stronger than lies, honesty is stronger than corruption, and good people are stronger than the corrupt. Clearwater proved that. We proved that." Michael, Melissa, and Mrs. Helen were in the audience, proud of their friend. After the event, the four had dinner together, as they did every year on the anniversary of the operation that changed their lives. "Do you think it was worth it?" asked Ernest. "It was," Michael replied without hesitation. "My mother lived her final years with dignity. Hundreds of other seniors did too. My family fell apart, but my conscience is at peace," said Melissa. "And I built a new family with all of you. I lost a husband, but I gained a life with purpose," added Mrs. Helen. "And I," said Ernest, "regained everything I had lost: dignity, work, love, friendship. I got my life back." He raised his glass of orange juice. "A toast to those who had the courage to listen when I whispered that they were listening." "A toast to those who aren't afraid of the truth," Michael replied. "A toast to those who choose what's right instead of what's easy," said Melissa. "A toast to all the seniors of Clearwater who now live with the dignity they always deserved," concluded Mrs. Helen. And so 4 people who came together by chance changed the destiny of an entire city. They proved that corruption can be defeated when brave citizens decide to act. The story of Ernest, Michael, Melissa, and Mrs. Helen became legend in Clearwater. A legend that inspired others to never stay silent in the face of injustice, because sometimes whispering the truth into the right person's ear can echo throughout an entire city. End of story. Now tell me what you thought of this story and where you're listening from. Do you believe ordinary people can really change a city when they come together for justice? Leave your opinion here in the comments with sincere words about courage and honesty. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories about people who made a difference.